Okay, hello, and welcome to She TV, the place women come to become powerfully feminine from the inside out. And I am Candice Oneida, and I'm super duper juiced up and excited. I've been wanting to do this for a while to introduce you to Joanna Shakti, who is my guest here today. So hello, Joanna.
Hi, I am so excited to be here. I love your mission. It is so close to my heart.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Joanna's really generously a few things. We're going to talk about this incredible topic today, embracing the differences between the masculine and feminine. We need that dun 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 music. Yeah. And then she's got some gifts to offer you at the end of this. So please stay tuned, listen, engage, ask questions and comments, because Joanna and I will jump in and answer your questions below. So let me tell you a little bit about Joanna if you don't already know. She is the founder of Ecstatic Intimacy and the Soul Love Mentor. She's a Soul Love Mentor. Joanna inspires anyone who hungers for deeper love and intimate pleasure to find and build a soulmate partnership where the love runs deep and the passion stays hot. You might call her a dating coach, a relationship coach, an intimacy coach, a tantra coach, or a spiritual coach. She guides men and women, singles and couples, to walk the spiritual path of love, creating relationships that are an expression of ecstatic authenticity, intimacy, and ecstasy. So beautiful. So welcome again.
Thank you. So good to be here.
So cool topic, embracing the differences between the masculine and the feminine. What would you say would be the very first, like if there's like to say, okay, we've only got 2 minutes, what's the one thing you would say would be the most important thing for women, because that's who we're talking to here, to embrace the differences between masculine and feminine? What would you say?
Wow. There are so many, and the one that intuitively arises is our different relationships to our emotions. Like we get so confused in that area, and it is an area of such rich possibility and such rich challenge, and that we all feel, male, female, masculine, feminine, anywhere on the spectrums, we all feel. But our relationships to our emotional bodies are different.
And what are the key differences? Like, what would you say the masculine type feels in terms of emotion, and what do the feminine feel in terms of emotion?
Well, and I'll contrast this to the feminine who's in touch with her femininity versus the feminine who's struggling with finding that authentic alignment and expression. And so with that genuine feminine, there's an inherent connection to emotion. It infuses everything that we do, and there's a close relationship to our sensuality. Like the physical feeling body and the sensations that we have and the intuitions that we have, as well as the emotional body. And all of that exists in the masculine, but they in general don't have nearly as quick access to it, and they won't share it unless they feel incredibly safe.
Oh, that's so true. And they find that through us usually. So when we present the vulnerability and the sensitivity and the openness, then they go, I've got permission to do that too. I can bring that forward.
They totally do. And here's the other piece, is that they get that through us. They get permission from us, just as you just described. And the other piece is, wow, we went right into something that I find so powerful and so transforming. And it even starts to bring up emotion because of the depth of the power. I was speaking to a business students, undergraduate business students at DU. They invited me to speak about the masculine and feminine several years ago. And the professor, he said to me, he said, women get so, like the feminine, and I'm going to say feminine women right now, that there's that desire for safety and the desire for physical safety. And that the truth is, he says, as I see it, male bodies, masculine energy can physically take out the feminine. And then he said, and here's my experience. He said, the words of the feminine can absolutely take out a man in a heartbeat, just the way that physically a feminine being can be taken out. The masculine beings are taken out in a heartbeat by our words. And I had the privilege at one of my retreats just in the last month of watching a man come into his heart and being so terrified. And the women, the tears pouring because they got the privilege to see that man open, but the tenderness that was required to hold that space for him. And realizing how tender his heart is. And this comes from my sacred sexuality journey. But the way that the feminine, the way that in this case the female body is penetrated in her sexuality, the male body, the male heart is penetrated by the feminine. And if we as female bodies do not want to be pushed into our sexuality, the male masculine heart does not want to be pushed with our emotions or our love. And this is the way that we can destroy and devastate a masculine being.
Wow, the space you're bringing, it's really beautiful. We've just gone already into some incredible depth. Like this concept of the words, like we can take a man down with our words. We emasculate men so unwittingly with the way that we protect ourselves behind words, and these words that we just have to be learning and be careful about what we do and don't use. And then we don't use ones that are actually really will light a man up, and he will walk over hot coals, not in order to manipulate. Remember, this is really not in order to manipulate, but to speak to the masculine soul so that it's a win-win. And it's a delight. Like, thing is, the masculine is wanting to provide for us, and they want to be able to get to that level of vulnerability. And they, so beautiful. Love what you're bringing. Love it.
It's the most intimate place. Because here, the other thing that I share so much, because I get the privilege of working with the divine masculine and the divine feminine together and really witnessing each other. And the gift that our emotions are the language of intimacy.
Mm.
They are the place that we connect. They are the place that we experience love. And we have to give the masculine a different level of space to be able to bring that. And then the level of tenderness. And that will change everything.
It's so funny because you're really speaking to this core belief that I see so often with my women that, well, firstly, they turn up in, you're referring to the non-feminine, which is what we call man mode.
Yes, man mode. Absolutely. Totally.
And so when a woman turns up man mode, she's basically just in a defensive orientation because somewhere, we learnt to believe that men are, I kind of say something like they're blockheaded or they're insensitive or they don't care. And it is so far from the truth. So far from the truth. You're just defending yourself when you're coming from that orientation. And when we say, well, why can't I lead? I'm smart, I'm successful. I say, well, hang on, what if you led with vulnerability? What if you led with the feminine energy and the being? Then you're actually opening a space for something potentially different, right?
Yes. This is a piece that I've been beginning to speak about in the last year. Feminine leadership. That it is, the Dalai Lama said many years ago, the Western woman will save the world. And I like that, but I've actually been challenging it a little bit. I don't think it's the Western woman. I believe it's the feminine. Yes. And it is the feminine, through our feminine beings, that we have the ability to open up a space for love and connection in our intimate relationships and in every part of the way that we relate in the world. And it is also that open vulnerability that comes through in a different way in a masculine being. Like it is, if we look at the yin yang symbol, it's the small center in the yang. Whereas his partner is that full expression of the feminine, supported by her small circle of yang. But that's the relationship, but it is the yin that brings us to love. And she absolutely gets to lead the way in that.
Yep. I say that the masculine leads direction in relationship and the feminine leads the depth.
Yes. Yes. So perfectly said.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more vulnerable though. It's scarier, huh? I can feel women out there going, why are you saying vulnerable? Can you stop saying the word vulnerable, please? It's vulnerable when you say vulnerable. Stop it.
Totally. Like, And the power. And it's one step at a time. And it's realizing how often we've put safety over on them, over on the masculine. And that knowing that we're safe with ourselves, that we're safe with ourselves to tell the truth about when we're hurt or when we're ecstatic or when we're angry. To tell that truth here and be safe here. Again, opens up a space for an entirely different dynamic between us.
So beautiful. I mean, in my relationship, the biggest learning ground I've had to have is exactly that. Like, the scariest thing has been to share strong emotions, big upsets, and often another one is big assumptions.
Oh, yeah. Big stories, like the stories that have been wound up here.
I am really the worst offender, and I fall on my sword there, and it's something that a big learning edge is I've got to have to say, okay, I'm assuming that, but also as a woman, what we try to learn is this sort of concept of curiosity, like, I think one of the things that's happened, in one of the ways I train too is, how you and I are talking now, we kind of understand how each other work, our minds work a certain way, we can move fast, we can go around all these topics, and we just know, we just kind of get the female brain. And then if we try to communicate with men in exactly the same way, and they don't respond the way a woman, we believe that they're deliberately not behaving or not responding to us, or they're being jerks.
Yep.
Or they don't get it.
Right.
Are you stupid? Like, how many times do I have to whatever?
Why won't you share with me?
It's just they literally are wired differently, and it's beautifully differently. And we have to understand the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the marriage of the two is so profound and so opposite in so many cases. And, it's even, it's the joke about the idea of the words, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine.
Like,
I'm fine. He says it. She's not fine. He says it unless he's not owning his masculine. And that's where there's interesting dynamics. But if he's in his masculine, he's fine. Leave him alone. Stop chasing him, because just because your words "I'm fine" don't mean that.
And when our girlfriend says it, it's like, really? Are you really fine?
Right.
Sense in that you're fine.
Right.
Press until she goes, well, okay, yeah, I'm not, and she'll go off and tell you what's actually happening. But when he generally says, that's okay, I'm good, I'm over it, I've moved on, he means it.
He means it. Absolutely. Absolutely. That one reminds me of the "are you sure" question too, in that, because if we go back to more of that, some of the, I want to say more biological differences, but that place where at a time in the past, the feminine needed the masculine to survive. And so that pleasing nature, that self-sacrifice nature, that making the other more important. And so she has a looser relationship with telling the truth. Whereas his relationship is, if I have a need, I'm going to tell you what it is. If I want to do this, I'm going to tell you what it is. If I know my vision, I'm going to tell you what it is. And he's clear on that. And so when a man says, yes, I'll do this for you, or can I take care of this for you? And she says, are you sure? We've actually questioned his integrity, which is so important to him.
He's trusting. It's like you're saying, I don't trust that your words matter. Or
absolutely. Yeah. And yet what most women want is to be able to trust his words, but then we question his words. Because if we did that with our girlfriend, it's the exact scenario that you just said. Oh yeah, I'll do that for you on Saturday. Well, you're sure? Well, actually, if you have somebody else that could help you, I've got the kids that need this and this and this. And are you sure? So that gives us the opportunity to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Because we show up differently. And man, those can create upsets.
But as you said before, when we actually understand, like even you're using the concept of the words, like the directness of the masculine, the direct penetrating direction of the masculine force is just direct. Yes. And that where the feminine is more this fluid, it's a changeable feast, movable feast. And yes. If I say it now, I mean, my word means a lot to me, and a man's word especially, but it's still like things change, and when you're in the feminine, you're okay with things being fluid. You're not going to get offended. Oh, the space has actually changed. But when the masculine understands that in us, and we understand the directness of the masculine, it's fine. There's a dance rather than, well, why can't you be flexible? Or why don't you just trust my word? It's just, we're different. The differences are profound and is what takes us to depth. Yeah.
It is. And it is, you know, I'll so often say that, like, the very things that we love about the masculine or the feminine, our opposite, are also the things that can frustrate us. So the things that we love can drive us crazy. But it is exactly as you're talking about. It's the awareness that then we get to come from a place of generosity. Yeah. We get to come from a place of seeing and being seen, rather than thinking, as you said kind of in the beginning of our conversation, that we're the enemy, that we're on opposite sides. We're not. We still want the same thing. We just come to it in very different ways, and we're not misbehaving.
And the other thing that, you know, I've been really working with lately, and I teach my women is, you see, often what we do when we're just dating someone or just getting to know someone is we'll hear their words, and partly because we're trained through the masculine lens, where we listen to the content a lot. Mm-hmm. And the masculine is often through their words revealing a lot more about their values and what matters to them. And so when we as women learn to, it's called, I can't remember who taught me this, but listen to learn. So if you switch your ears to, what can I learn about this man's values, about how he sees life and how he sees relationship, and it's literally a game I play. It's like, what is he telling me in the content of what he's saying? Because otherwise what happens is we go, well, I agree or I disagree with the content, and then we're in the wars of the masculine or the man mode against him. And the content wars, that's great, and it's banter, but he's done with that. He's a warrior all day long. He's already done that all day long. He doesn't want to come home and suddenly banter about content with you.
Mm-mm.
But listen to learn is this whole way of receiving his masculine values and what he's saying through them. It's so much fun.
It is fun. And here's where the magic comes in, is that it's not like, yes, absolutely, like receiving the values, and we create a space for them to reveal, to show us who they truly are. And that's what we want to know. But if we barrage them with questions, or we barrage them with our reflections on what they said, and sure, there is some of that, but it is slow down, create space, and through our light, through our magnetism, we invite him to share. and back to that space.
Deeper and deeper, right?
Yes.
And then we go from something that might start as just content driven. The more we just hold space, the more intimate it's going to get, the more revealing it's going to get, the more deep it's going to get, because he feels safer and safer and safer to reveal himself to us.
Yes, and that's huge power that I don't think a lot of feminine beings realize they have.
Absolutely. Oh, beautiful. What other? So we've spoken about emotional differences, and we did talk about other things. What else would you say would be a core other difference to embrace as a woman moving toward the feminine, as they're learning about the feminine, which is what women are doing here?
Yes.
What other thing in terms of them understanding the masculine better would they need to embrace?
Yeah, I'm drawn in the area of sexuality, and I'm kind of feeling into what wants to like arise as the juicy bit right now. And
bring it, baby.
What's that?
I said, bring it, baby. Talking about
well, and so there's
by the way, I have a big issue about that people will talk about the feminine and they tap dance around sexuality. It's like you can't ignore sexuality if you're going to talk about the feminine. You can't.
Oh my God, no. Oh my God, no. Totally.
Baby is what I'm saying.
So, okay. Yeah, no, I do entire weekend retreats on sexuality and masculine and feminine. So let's talk about it. And it was just feeling into like what's here. So now that you've said that, I'm like, there's a couple of things that are going to come. And one of them is, so I'm going to tie this into, let's see how, so let's just talk about orgasm. Like orgasm for the feminine requires letting go of control, requires total surrender for us to have the full experience. And oh, by the way, if we're with a masculine partner, and I'm going to use the he pronoun, but it doesn't need to be a male, masculine partner is so desirous of our pleasure. So there's two actual big differences that we're talking about here. One is we do not have to do equal when it comes to giving and receiving in our sexuality. We, as the feminine beings, we are the receiver, the predominant period of our sexual explorations. Receive, receive, receive. Let yourself feel your pleasure. He is turned on by your pleasure. He is aroused by your pleasure. He's not aroused by you keeping score of who's got more downtime or touch time or whatever we want to call it.
Because that is a complete misunderstanding that your pleasure, you're bringing your feminine sexual power into the sexual space, is a massive giving to the masculine. Massive. That is the giving.
That is the giving. Yes.
To the masculine, he is feeding off your sexual flow, your sexual energy, your pleasure. So the more you are comfortable with that, the more he's going, oh my God, this woman's a goddess.
Totally. And he brings more of himself. He brings more of himself. It is so key that we surrender into pleasure and that we discover how that pleasure works. And then when he says, what turns you on, be willing to share. And if you don't know, be willing to explore and make the sounds and the different expressions that let you both together explore deeper and deeper pleasure.
So beautiful. And another core aspect of this is, the thing is, one of the things about the feminine, the sexual space is like one of the biggest microcosms for masculine feminine dynamics.
Oh, totally.
Right? Is that's working now, I want something else now.
Yep.
And it could be a second by second thing, and you learning to track what that is in your body, you being able to express it in an empowered way that doesn't sound like he's doing something wrong, but there's a bit of a training around that. Just this, and then this, and then this. And us being with the pleasure in a moment by moment way that is not goal oriented.
Yes.
Just the pleasure. Drop the need for climax or orgasm, and it's more likely to happen in a way that's real and rich and deep. Okay, you got me on my high horse now talking about sex.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, rich and deep and bigger and more powerful than you've ever imagined if you will just be with the flow. So that the sensuality of your body, the subtle, like, take the time to discover and pay attention to the subtle vibrations. And as you discover those subtle vibrations, they expand and they expand and they expand. And then, holy, what was that? Huge power by our own self-awareness and our own willingness to express the desires, as well as, oh my God, that's getting so like, oh, it's tingling. Oh, the vibration. Oh, like just even engaging with it and being in the experience. And that takes some time, but it will, to practice and learn how to be in that amplifies it versus taking you in your head, because it's staying in the feeling experience. But the acknowledgement of it and the sharing of it can have such an amplification effect.
And by that very definition, it is not monolithic. There is not one sexual session that is the same as the last. Because if you're learning to be in the moment, in the present, I call this the feminine sexual arc.
Yeah.
It's different. Masculine's a little bit more like this.
Mm-hmm.
And when we learn to be whoa, 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 whoa. That's just like, whoa, fuck, look what my body can do, what my energy can do. You will literally blow his brains out. And that's what he loves about us.
Totally. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know this is going to go into talking about sex. I'm extra happy now. Wow, girl.
I love what you said. You can't separate the two. They are absolutely, I like to say, from the bedroom to the boardroom and everywhere in between. How we're embracing our femininity is playing out in every one of those places. And if we look at sex, we'll learn about what we're doing in business. And if we look at what we're doing in business, we'll learn about what we're doing in sex. Absolutely. It's such a powerful, as you said, microcosm, but I think maybe it's a macrocosm.
It's the macrocosm of the feminine. I mean, my I think you're also trained in Tantra. I'm trained in things like that too. And effectively, the thing is, the feminine actually is the sexual space. It's 9/10, as they said in the Teresia Smith. It's 9/10 of sexuality. And one of the biggest things we have to learn as women is to get that the modern world's sort of slant on sexuality through the lens of things like pornography is that it's about the masculine, and it's actually not. It's actually the feminine. And this actually is the seated ground of where your feminine energy comes from. And so if there's any sense of an antagonistic relationship to your sexual energy, and by the way, it doesn't just mean whilst having sex.
Right.
It means your sexual energy is something that you embrace and that you move with, and that it's life force and it's in you and that it's rolling inside of you all the time. And so when you embrace that and you realize, oh my God, this is more valuable. I am valuable by virtue of my relationship to this.
Absolutely. And valuable, powerful, influential, and our ecstasy, the ecstasy of our lives. Like, so often we take that word and we make it mean sex.
Yeah.
Ecstasy is the richness, the juiciness, the fullness, the depth and the passion and the aliveness of life. Everything that we do, and our sexual energy is always with us, and it's always inspiring and enlivening us if we're willing to really open that relationship. I've actually come to discover over the years, like, the yoni, our vagina, our sacred space, she talks. She responds to what she's another expression of our intuition.
We call it pussy brain in the Powerfully Feminine Sisterhood.
Okay, great. Yes, okay.
It's a truly operating, functional thing that if you stop listening to it, you're going to suffer. It's not a good idea. Yeah. So start to tune into pussy brain.
I love it.
Training around that. So what we're talking about is concepts that I know Joanna teaches about too. And so at first it might be, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? My vagina has a mind of her own. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She is always talking to you. Always talking to you. And she's a beautiful friend. And treat her with the reverence that you want someone else to treat her with.
Yeah. So beautiful, Joanna. And, I really feel you pointing back to again and again, for us to feel out of conflict with our own masculine or with the masculine outside us or anyone outside of us, and to understand ourselves more and more as a feminine being in the polarity of masculine and feminine. Yes. That it comes back again and again and again to our inner relationship to ourself, our energy, our body, our life force, our sexuality. And that has to happen first before any of these other things can be seen from an empowered position inside of us.
Absolutely. I so often say you have to be it before you can have it. And it truly is this relationship we want the relationship masculine, feminine, external to us, with us. And the effectiveness, the juiciness, the goodness of this yin-yang dynamic has everything to do with the internal yin-yang dynamic. And one of the things, I had one of the sexuality retreats a couple years ago. One of the women shared, she said, I realize that I never had a boundary. I never said no. I so wanted to be loved that I always said yes. And then beautifully, one of the men in the room courageously stood up and he said, you know what? I was the guy looking for the woman like you because I didn't want to connect with my heart. And it was such a profound moment of truth that the only way the masculine can be in their wholeness is they've got to embody that masculine, but then they must embody the yin, the feminine. The only way the feminine can be fully expressed is not to be overamped and to have this masculine facade, man mode, as you called it. Like, that doesn't work. It's actually, as I've been beginning to call it, it's like the pseudo-masculine. It's the mask. It's the pretend. And what so happens is, what I see is these man mode women who have no actual connection to their yang, to their masculine. They never say no. They never hold that space for themselves. So the fullest expression of the feminine requires her relationship with that internal yang.
Absolutely agree. Because, you and I are in a world where we're encountering, I don't know if this is your story, but it definitely is mine, because I was one of those women, big time.
Me too. 2 hands. I was her.
I called myself the corporate bitch from hell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was one of them.
Yep. I got called a bully in my last position in corporate.
Yeah, and even then I took that into my own businesses, actually, because all I knew, we, to no blame of anybody that's listening now, like, this is the world in which we live. This is the waters in which we swim. We live in a masculine dominant worldview, and that the masculine doesn't mean male dominant. It means the masculine worldview, which is do, go, tick off the to-do list, achieve success through that lens. And we internalized that. We took it on. We believed that was true. And many of us have just nailed it, right? We nailed the success model through the masculine, but all the while just pushing down the feminine. But me, not intending to, I just didn't know. I had no role models. I had no idea that I was destroying my feminine until my body broke down when I turned 40. I burnt out. I didn't know that I was doing it. So many of the women who listen here are in that mode. And so Joanna and I here is just saying, look, the thing is, we're not just going, okay, you're out of balance, let's get you back into balance. No, it's great that you've got this wonderful masculine know-how. We're not here telling you to cut that off, the dot in the middle of the yin-yang symbol. We're saying without you embodying and embracing the fleshing out the juice of the feminine, you're missing out on a whole experience of yourself as in your life. This is your life. And when you do, then suddenly, like literally the lens changes of the type of men that turn up, of the type of way you can be with other women, by the way. You know,
Totally.
when you're feminine, you have a much different relationship to queens. You're not in competition. You're in, like this, I always say there's room for everybody up here as a queen.
Yeah. Yes. And like the relationship with the feminine, with the queens, absolutely. With the masculine and with life itself. Like as you were talking, I'm like, it's the orgasmic living. It's living life in that juiciness where it feels so good to live your life. That you've so fully embraced who you are and what you're capable of, and the juiciness, the sensualness, the pleasure. Like we're the pleasure beings. We're really the pleasure vehicles of life. And it's like, how many times have we thought, oh, I want what she's having?
Yeah.
Because we embody it. Because we are it.
Oh, Joanna, so wonderful. And I am absolutely certain I want to bring you back on, and I'm absolutely certain we could literally spend days talking about this together. And so let's leave it here, because also, you know, we want you girls to have enough just to take this in. Some big stuff's been passed here, some big energy, right? So, Joanna, you very, very generously are offering some free video series to my women. So please just describe a bit about it. We'll put a link below so that you can link straight on it and get onto the series. But tell us a little bit about what you're offering.
Absolutely. I've got a 3-part online live training series that's going on right now. We've actually done the first training, but it's available on replay, and all of the trainings will be available on replay. And the series is called Igniting Divine Union. And it's all about the sacred path of love and ecstasy and how to get there from here. And in the 3 parts, we're exploring in part 1 this alignment of the divine masculine and feminine that awakens your magnetic power, that attraction, not just for love and sexuality, but your magnetic power as a being in the world. And then as we go into training 2, which is coming up next week, we are talking about some more of what we talked about here and diving even deeper in why do we fight? What creates these conflicts? And how do we actually be happy together? And then in training 3, we dive into walking this sacred path together to where through our partnerships, through our dynamics, through the meeting of the masculine and feminine souls, that we actually are each coming into fuller and fuller expressions. And so how do we open into his soul or the masculine soul full expression in partnership, in sacred partnership with that full expression of the feminine soul and how we co-create together. So it's one of my favorite trainings that I've actually done as an introductory series. And so it's special because we're really bringing the divine union into presence and into consciousness and into reality.
Joanna, that's so beautifully expressed and so generous of you. And so I really, excuse me, I really want to encourage you to click below. I want you to get this series. It sounds like it may only be up for a little period of time. So take advantage of that. That's a generous expression of sharing of her knowledge and her experience with you. So please click below, jump on in and get this series. And we will have Joanna back on again. Comment below, ask questions below. We'll both jump on in and answer. And if you have any other ideas of what you'd like Joanna to talk about, or for us to talk about together, pop that down there too. Okay? So Joanna, from my heart to yours, it's been a real delight today. I really loved our time together. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do and being this medium for spreading this so deeply important and juicy, ecstatic message. Thank you.
My pleasure. Beautiful. So much love to everybody out there. And as I always say, go out there and shine. Go out there and shine. And we will see you back here in Chic TV soon. Much, much love from my heart to yours. Mwah. Big kiss. Bye.